on board. Al Roker was like, I got a fist pump from Joe Biden. It was really pathetic. And someone who follows this as much as I do, and I'm pretty sure it drives him just as crazy, is Gerry Callahan. Thank you very much for being with us, Gerry.
Hi, Grace. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. You can follow Gerry on Twitter at Gerry Callahan. He also has the Callahan Podcast. Make sure you check that out wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, all that stuff. Gerry, do you have a moment from either yesterday or today that you think is the most absurd take on this inauguration?
That's a good question. I would say two things. I would say watching the first press conference from the press secretary, how do you say her last name?
I think it's Psaki.
Psaki. Jen Psaki. And I couldn't believe it. I knew they were going to throw softballs. I knew they were going to be kissing her. But a serious question from an alleged journalist was, does Joe Biden have any problem changing the color pattern in Air Force One? Now, that's something you and I could not make up. That's even sillier than what we envisioned from these people.
And I like how she prefaced it with, on a lighter note. because they really said that a lot when Trump was president. On a lighter note, Kaylee.
I never even heard of someone questioning or caring about the color pattern of Air Force One. So that was new to me, but I also laughed out loud at the tweet that said Jill Biden is bringing high fashion back to the White House.
Yeah.
The woman who just left was a supermodel and a fashion designer, and they think Dr. Jill is bringing fashion back to the White House, and that's on top of Kamala's Chuck Taylors, which everybody is just thrilled about. So it is a long list. I was just looking at some new ones today, some new tweets. The guy from Atlantic Magazine, a staff writer who was enthralled by Kamala Harris's hair blowing in the wind.
Gerry, you know what that means, right? Because she has longer hair. In other words, she's a woman, and she's the first woman to ever do that.
Well, I pointed out, I responded to the guy, said, Trump's hair blew in the wind all the time. That didn't do anything for you?
I know, it's insane. Now, another thing I have to ask you, Gerry, because I know you're a conservative, and like me, you probably had to and wanted to condemn what happened at the Capitol time and time and time again. I did it several hundred times, and I'll keep doing it because it's consistently wrong no matter when it happens. But I'm just wondering, do you think any of these liberal politicians are going to have to condemn what's happening right now in Portland?
Oh, no, of course not. They'll ignore it. I mean, it was amazing yesterday watching Biden give this speech. And by the way, am I allowed to include Chris Wallace on that list? Because he absolutely makes me nauseous. I don't remember the last time I hated a media person as much as I hate Chris Wallace, because I watched the speech. I left it on Fox. I was wondering what that Biden stooge would say. And he comes on and says, the best inaugural speech he's ever heard.
Yeah.
Even if it were really good, Grace should say that's absurd. I mean, he just doesn't, Biden, even on his best day, can't compare to Reagan or Kennedy or even Obama or Clinton. He's just a lousy speaker. And to say it's the best you've ever heard, I mean, you really expose yourself as a complete fraud and a complete sycophant. But what was the question again?
Do you think anyone's going to have to condemn the Antifa riots? I know they won't have to, but I'm even surprised that there's barely any coverage of it. And it's funny because now we're in Joe Biden's America, aren't we?
I was watching Biden's speech, and he mentions, of course, the new boogeyman, the made-up threat of domestic terrorists, of white supremacists, of these great threats at home, and no mention of Antifa. Now, you said it, I've said it, I've condemned the Capitol Hill riot 1,000 times. It was one day, 8 hours. It was an embarrassment. It was a disgrace. It was despicable. I condemned that the way I condemned all violent riots. The other side, Antifa and Black Lives Matter, rioted for literally 6 straight months, literally 100-plus days of trying to burn down a federal courthouse in Portland. And Joe Biden didn't think that was worth mentioning. He didn't mention Antifa. He didn't mention Black Lives Matter, and he didn't mention China. But he did mention this made-up threat, which, by the way, is the whole reason they had 26,000 National Guardsmen and fencing and machine guns and everything else, was to advance the theory, the made-up theory, that they were all under siege from some invisible white supremacist threat inside our own borders.
Right.
It was, it was kind of the theme of the inauguration. Watch out. The white supremacists are lurking out there, and they're coming to get us. That's why we have an army surrounding us and no people here.
And I noticed a shift because there's so many things that are going to come back now that Joe Biden's president. I was mentioning earlier, people are going to start, proudly putting out their American flags again, people who haven't, looked at an American flag in 4 years. And there's going to be a lot less grim milestones, things of that nature. But something else I noticed, all those celebrities that were at the inauguration, they were taking pictures with the National Guard and saying, these are the real heroes. They're heroes now. But if this were a month ago, they would be, trying to defund everyone who keeps them safe.
Just think of what made a comeback on day one. What made a comeback was walls, fences, guns, the military, the police. They all made a big comeback on day one. Although I have to say, after noon, there were 2,700 COVID deaths yesterday, which means Joe Biden killed 2,700 people on his first day, and they would all be alive today if not for Joe Biden.
Yeah, but I was reading
those are the rules, Grace.
I was reading a story today, Gerry, that there's been an unexpected decline in COVID cases, and it's going to continue. And also that Amazon, I don't know what happened. I don't know if the letter got lost in the mail and it just arrived, but they're actually going to help with the rollout. They sent Joe Biden a letter and said, we want to help with the vaccine rollout. Timing is everything.
Yeah. They didn't want to help for the last 2 months, but they really want to help now. It is kind of nauseating. And I was expecting it. Here's what would be really scary, Grace. Can you imagine if they had a good candidate? Like a lucid candidate. They have a 78-year-old, kind of frail, confused old man, and they're pretending like he's ushering in a new dawn, a new day.
Like he's Winston Churchill.
Like he's, JFK, and he's young and vibrant and a new energy. And you're saying, hold on, we know he's not like that. We know he's not even long for the job, and we know the guy, the girl, the woman who is going to ascend to the throne is the most unappealing, unlikable candidate you people have. She didn't even make it to the primaries. She bowed out before she got to Iowa and New Hampshire. I was looking that up yesterday. Biden finished 5th in New Hampshire. He finished behind Liz Warren. He finished 4th in Iowa. And Kamala Harris didn't even make it to either of those states because she was so unpopular. The polling was so bad, she pulled out in December of 2019.
Well, what's wild is that Joe Biden got 80 million votes. And I'm telling you, Gerry, that inauguration yesterday, that charismatic, compelling bit of TV is going to be the most viewed thing ever in our history. More than Barack Obama's inauguration, way more than Trump's. It's going to break all records.
He didn't get 80 million. I'm sorry. Here's how it works, Grace. Trump got 74 million. 74 million people voted for Trump, and 80 million people voted against Trump. Biden was not even a factor. He wasn't even relevant here. It's like they're just people that hated Trump and wanted to get rid of Trump, and they won. They won.
Exactly.
And I was there 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I went to the Trump inauguration, and there was Antifa scum everywhere, running around, breaking windows, throwing stuff. I saw that famous burning limo in front of the Trump Hotel. We went to the Trump Hotel and watched the riots. It was, it was entertaining. It was didn't see 26,000 troops, but certainly saw violent mobs running everywhere. And I don't remember anyone making a big deal out of it. It was just, that was what it was like on Inauguration Day.
Exactly. Now, Gerry, there's a lot of things that Joe Biden has planned for us, whether it's the minimum wage to $15, immigration. He's talking a lot about amnesty. And there's also there's just a lot of changes that he's making right away. He's going to stop building the wall. And obviously the Keystone Pipeline, he's going to rescind that permit. Any of those things I just mentioned, or if you have one that's really sticking out to you, what scares you the most?
Oh, that's a good question. And so, what scares me the most is that big tech gets a free rein. Obviously, they were out of control, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and Trump and the Republican Senate could do nothing or did nothing to stop them. And now they just must be saying, we won, we're in control now. They can shut down anybody, you, me, Obviously, they could shut down the president. There's nothing stopping them. They just got elected. I mean, people voted for Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg and Google, and it's a scary thing. And you know what I know. There are people in the media who have no problem with that. People in the media calling for big tech and comedians, these alleged edgy comedians, Chelsea Handler and Sacha Baron Cohen, pleading with big tech to suppress more people's voices, to crush out more dissent. That's what scares me. I mean, the thing that baffles me most would probably be the Keystone Pipeline. I was just reading 42,000 people will be out of work. All good-paying, blue-collar jobs, just put out of work as a favor to the crazy environmental lunatics. It'll make the price of gas go up. It hurts the relationship with Canada. It helps Russia. It helps Iran. It's just insane. And it seemed like one of those things he might, soften or change his mind on, but he didn't. He just swipe of a pen and 42,000 people are out of work.
Right. And Pete Buttigieg says, well, it's going to create net jobs, whatever that means. And Ted Cruz said to him, so that means it's going to create jobs for other people, not the people who are losing the jobs. It's like you said, Gerry, it's just absolutely out of control. And I do agree with you there. I think that yesterday was embarrassing for the media. But another thing I want to say, and I think you probably see this a lot too, you ever get frightened? I mean, I expect stuff from Brian Stelter and, all these people on Twitter. And I follow people that tend to call out these people on their hypocrisy, whether it's Molly Hemingway or you, Gerry, or other people like that. But what scares me the most is when I'll click on something like an absurdly laughable tweet, like about Dr. Jill and Kamala's fashion, how they're bringing fashion back into the White House, and the comments beneath it of real people on their phones buying into this, who are, whatever the tweet is, if it's Brian Stelter, oh, Orange Man, I'm so glad he's gone. I'm rejoicing in the street. Me and my dog are going for a walk and we're crying from happiness. It frightens me. I'm like, people are buying into this and they're writing these responses back that I can't wrap my mind around.
Yeah, I get quite a bit of that. I mean, I made one little wisecrack about the poet, and the 22-year-old Harvard grad. And I confess, I don't like poetry. I make fun of the poet every 4 years. It doesn't matter. I don't get poetry. It doesn't really do much for me. And immediately it was, everything. You name it, racist, bigot, sexist. You hater. And I'm going, what? It was a poem. I don't like poetry. But you can't do that. There's not really room for dissent. And you see some of the things people get banned for, people get suspended for. It's nothing. It's just this frightening war on the opposition, on dissent. And I mean, it's just un-American. I'll say it again. I mean, if you're rooting for Facebook and you're rooting for Google and Twitter, and you're rooting against Parler, or you're rooting against Trump or Michelle Malkin, then you're un-American. That's just I don't care what you feel politically. If you're rooting against free speech, you're un-American.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm talking to Gerry Callahan. Gerry, where can everyone find your podcast and find you on Twitter for as long as you're on there for?
They can hurry up. At Gerry Callahan, and the Callahan Podcast you can find anywhere on Apple. Just look for me or look for Callahan Podcast. Just did a good one today with some Tom Brady talk, but also some.
Oh my gosh! Gerry, my brothers are going to kill me. They specifically said they want to know: are you rooting for Tom this weekend?
Yes, I'm rooting for Tom. I want a Bills-Bucks Super Bowl, and I do like the way Tom just ruins the day for so many people.
Yeah, I know.
He's going to if he wins Sunday, he's going to his 10th Super Bowl. That's 10 Super Bowls in 20 years. It's just a remarkable streak. And I always think of the people, who hate him. There's so many in the media. Hell, lots of people hate him, Grace, because he had a Trump hat in his locker.
Yeah.
And you know what kind of people they are. So if he's going to ruin their day, that will make me happy. So, yes, I'm rooting for Tom, and I'm rooting for the Bills, too.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Gerry. And I actually I'll email you a little picture here I have of the Boston Globe top 10 headlines today. I think it will make you laugh. There's a lot of stuff about world hopes for renewed cooperation with U.S. under Biden. And on Inauguration Day, the hill we climbed and the dreams we can no longer defer. Fist bumps, cute kids, big birds.
What wasn't the big headline, democracy wins or democracy prevails?
Yes, that was Washington Post, I think.
Washington. Tell me this: when did democracy not win in this country in the last 240 years? When did democracy not win? When was there ever a threat to democracy? Because some moron with a Viking hat went into the Senate, or they let him into the Senate. That was a threat to democracy. I mean, it's just so absurd. It's one big lie.
It's one big lie.
To quote Goebbels, as Biden said, to quote Goebbels, it's all a big lie.
Thank you so much, Gerry, for joining us. We will be back, guys, and don't go anywhere. We'll take your calls. We have a lot more to get to before the show ends. I'm Grace Curley, and this is The Grace Curley Show.
You're listening to The Grace Curley Show.